Let's talk about what's going on in Yemen. The United Nations says it has the worst humanitarian crisis on the planet. And in a world with all sorts of problems, that is saying something. Yemen went from being the heart of ancient Arabia to one of the poorest countries in the Middle East. And for the last 5 years, it's been torn apart by war. Local groups on the ground are fighting each other, while a Saudi-led coalition bombs from above. And caught in the fighting are millions of Yemenis desperately struggling to survive. So how did things get so bad, and is there a way out? I'm Sandra Gottman, and this is Start Here, Al Jazeera's brand new show where we break down all of the big stories from the fast-paced and often confusing world of news. The first thing to know about the war in Yemen is that there's a lot of players, starting with this man, Ali Abdullah Saleh. He was Yemen's president for 20 years since 1990. This is a man who once compared ruling over Yemen to dancing on the heads of snakes. It's no wonder that during the Arab Spring of 2011, Yemenis rose up against Saleh in the hope that things might get better. But they didn't. And this is where the next big player comes in, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the most influential member of a club of countries known as the Gulf Cooperation Council. And it was the GCC that oversaw negotiations to finally force Saleh out. The GCC's deal helped install a new government in Yemen and put Vice President Abdrabbu Mansur Hadi in charge.
Yemen continued to suffer under President Hadi after the revolution. The initiatives that had come out of the revolution were brokered by Gulf powers who simply appeared to return the same old elites to power.
So by 2014, some of Yemen's factions began to lose patience. One of them was the Houthis, another major player in this war. Now, the Houthis are a Shia Muslim minority from northern Yemen. They say they've been marginalized and often rebelled against the government. And during the Arab Spring, they were very involved in the uprisings against Saleh. But here's the twist. The Houthis and Saleh were both sidelined by the GCC's plans for Yemen's new government. So the former enemies joined forces. The Houthis, together with some of Saleh's allies still in the army, took over Yemen's capital Sana'a in 2014. Hadi fled to Saudi Arabia, and then the Saudis, along with several other countries, formed a coalition to return their man Hadi to power.
And Saudi Arabia expressed three main war aims. It wanted to restore the government of President Hadi. It wanted to protect its own southern border and to prevent Yemen from fragmenting. And it wanted to contain the perceived growing influence of Iran in the region.
We'll come back to Iran in a second, but first we have to talk about the Saudi-led intervention. It was a campaign of relentless airstrikes. More than 19,000 attacks in the last 4 years, according to the latest reports. Saudi-led forces say they've been targeting the enemy, but rights groups accuse the coalition of bombing dozens of hospitals and schools, killing thousands of Yemeni civilians. Which brings us to Yemen's immense humanitarian crisis. In this war, it's not just the fighting that's causing all the suffering. Even aid is being used as a weapon. In 2015, the Saudi-led coalition created a land, sea, and air barrier around Yemen, making it almost impossible for supplies to get in or out. The Houthis are also blamed for blocking, destroying, or taking aid, and Yemenis desperately need it.
Today's only meal is a plate of plain boiled rice between the family.
Cholera cases are spreading fast.
Doctors are facing a severe shortage of drugs.
In a country of 29 million people, the UN says 24 million depend on some kind of humanitarian help. That's nearly the entire population of Australia.
More than 11 million children in need of humanitarian aid, nearly every single Yemeni child.
This is rapidly becoming the world's worst humanitarian disaster.
Now let's get back to the war, because fighting is still going on, but the dynamics have changed. The Houthi and Saleh alliance we talked about earlier broke down in 2017 after they'd fought the Saudi-led forces for 3 years. In fact, Saleh switched sides on TV, saying he wanted to talk to the coalition. 2 days later, the Houthis killed him. Today, the Houthis still control Yemen's capital, Sana'a, and for now, they have an upper hand in the war. But Saudi Arabia thinks it's because they're getting help from Iran. Now, as the biggest Shia power in the region, Iran has openly supported the Houthis, but denies backing them militarily. But Saudi Arabia and others insist Iran does have a hand in the fighting. Recently, Saudi Arabia's oil facilities were attacked. The Houthis say they did it, but the coalition and its allies aren't buying it.
It is clear, based on detailed exploitation conducted by Saudi, United States, and other international investigative teams, that the weapons used in the attack were Iranian-produced.
So when people talk about Yemen being a proxy war, this is what they mean. It's the fact that two major rivals, Saudi Arabia and Iran, are backing opposite sides in a foreign war. So are all the other countries in Saudi's coalition, plus allies like the United States, France, and the United Kingdom, who've been supplying them with weapons and logistical support. Not to mention all of Yemen's armed groups, including the Houthis, secessionist groups in the south, Al-Qaeda, and ISIL. When the war is over, the UN says they could all be liable for atrocities in Yemen.
Certaines de ces violations sont susceptibles de constituer des crimes de guerre.
So this is where we're at. A stalemate of finger-pointing and fighting by all of those different players, despite the UN's many attempts at peace deals and ceasefires. But as with any war, experts say diplomacy will be the only way to put an end to the nightmare in Yemen. If there's a story or a topic you want to get your head around, get in touch with us on Twitter or Facebook. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode.